And I'm joined now by the Executive Director of the Children's Cancer Institute, Professor Michelle Haber. Michelle, thanks very much for coming in this evening.
Thank you.
Tell us a bit more about this research initiative.
So this is really the single most exciting and ambitious initiative ever undertaken for children with cancer in Australia. It's being led by Children's Cancer Institute, but in partnership with the clinicians at Sydney Children's Hospital. But it's an unprecedented collaboration which involves every children's hospital around Australia that treats children with cancer, and 11 of the leading medical research institutes in Australia and international research partners as well. And this is a program that's directed towards the children who are at highest risk of dying from their cancer. So childhood cancer has been a fantastic success story. We've gone from virtually all children diagnosed with cancer dying barely 60 years ago. Now 80% of these children survive, which is fantastic, but that means that there's 1 in 5 children still dying, 3 Australian children every week dying of this disease, the commonest cause of death from kids from disease in this country. So this is a program that is directed towards children who either are diagnosed with terrible cancers where at the time of diagnosis their likelihood of surviving is less than 30%, and there are some brain tumours even today where children are diagnosed, there's nothing that can be done for them. All that a doctor can do is to say that you need to be prepared for your child to die. And then there's the other scenario of children who have what would normally be regarded as a cancer that's got a good likelihood of survival, but then they relapse on standard therapy, on the best treatments that the doctors have to give them. And again, their likelihood of survival plummets. So it's for these children, there's about 150 of these children every year in Australia out of the 950 or so children diagnosed with cancer. What this program will involve, it's true bench to bedside research, a partnership between scientists and clinicians. The tumour cells of these children will come to Children's Cancer Institute, wherever in the country they may be diagnosed. They will be analysed by a battery of tests with the latest technologies in partnership with the Garvan Institute, Peter MacCallum, Murdoch Institute, the leading institutes around the country. We will analyse the genetics of the individual child's cancer. We recognise, we know that every child's cancer is different, and to get to 100% cure, we need to personalise the treatment. So each child's tumour will be analysed in real time for the genetics and for the response to a range, hundreds of anti-cancer drugs. And we will be able to identify the exact drugs that have the greatest likelihood for that to kill the cancer cells of that particular child. And we can grow the cells in the laboratory and empirically show which ones are working.
How many children are we talking here? If you're talking about personal, individually analysing them, how many kids are you going to be doing that for?
So what we've done today is launch the national clinical trial. There will be 400 children on this program over the next 3 years. We've just completed a pilot study where we expected to have 12 children, but in fact that's just been in New South Wales. We've had nearly 60 children enrolled because of the enormous demand from parents and doctors of kids with cancer, because these are kids who otherwise have no hope. And we've been able to show on the pilot already that in over a third of these children we've been able to identify treatments that have the very real potential of improving the outlook of these kids. We've identified about 10% of the patients who actually had the wrong diagnosis, and only the genetics have identified that. So the pilot study and we've also been able to identify in about 10% of children that there's actually a mutation or a genetic change in the normal tissues of the child, which may have contributed to them getting cancer and may relate to a cancer risk in siblings or family, and we then refer to genetic counselling.
Often the cancer treatment can be very harsh, and as we heard in that story, it can involve a lot of side effects for those kids. And if you say that there are some kids who are being wrongly diagnosed drugs, and they're taking those drugs and dealing with the side effects for no good reason, will this individualised program help to combat that?
Yes, and it's not just the children. That's a very small proportion of children who have the wrong diagnosis. It's for all children with cancer, the drugs that are used to treat cancer routinely are actually extremely damaging. They're poisons. They're not smart drugs. They are drugs that are designed to kill rapidly dividing cells like cancer cells. But unfortunately, in the growing child's body, virtually every cell is rapidly dividing. So these children do get terrible side effects. The great advantage of this personalised medicine and analysing the genetics of each child's cancer is that you can see specific genetic changes in the individual child's tumour, where there are drugs available that will only kill cancer cells that have that specific genetic change. So we're matching the drug to the target using the latest technologies to allow us to do that, and that means you're only going to be killing the cancer cells, not the normal cells, and have the potential of sparing the children these terrible side effects.
Absolutely. All right, Professor Michelle Haber, really appreciate you coming in this evening. Thank you.
Pleasure.